Chapter 9. We returned to Unalaska after the World Jubilee in London. The cannery had grown from original 42 cases per year to a capacity of 4,000 cases per month, with an operational season year-round instead of only 2 months in the summer. Our main product had changed from salmon to the world-famous king crab. A restlessness began to creep into my soul at this time. I felt that we had done all we could for the Aleutian Islands in the faith of God. The people all had work now, all were aware of our faith, and literature had been distributed not only in Unalaska, but to the islands of Akutan and Nikolsky. However, my roots had gone down so deeply that it seemed impossible to break free, like the heavenly bird described by Baha'u'llah, which soars on wings of detachment and nearness to God, then descends into the mire and clay to satisfy its hunger, and with sullied wings is unable to resume its flight. I never had any purpose save service to God and humanity in this, our pioneering post, and never in the entire 10 years I had let slip that pioneering spirit. First must come the cause of God, which dominated our lives. Then it happened. Everything was running very smoothly, although in a business such as ours, we were always in debt. For example, we would can $100,000 worth of crab, ship it to Seattle, and upon presentation of warehouse receipts, would receive $70,000 in advance on the future sale of the product. Eventually, we would, after sale and costs, receive the additional $30,000 or whatever was left. Shortly after one such shipment, however, instead of a check, we received word that the bank had refused the advance. To iron out the difficulties, I kissed my family goodbye, closed the cannery, and left for Seattle, descending into that black and ruinous pit Baha'u'llah so vividly describes. In Seattle, every door was closed. It appeared that we had taken away some very good accounts from the multi-million-dollar fish monopolies, and since business is business, it had been decided by them that we must go. I concluded that as I owed over $30,000 to my fishermen alone, it would be best to sell at cost and clear out. Again, the competition was ahead of me and had just put 100,000 cases of crab on the market at 50 cents under cost. Of course, all these companies had to do was raise the price of their fruit or vegetables a few pennies a case to recoup their loss on the crab. But alas for us, we only had the crab and faced bankruptcy. At night I would go to bed, and instead of having a heart burning with the love of God, I was preoccupied with those sordid and worthless problems of life. And in the morning, instead of, "I have wakened in thy shelter, O my God," it was, "O God, how can I pay my fishermen?" I could lock the cannery door and leave, except that I had tremendous responsibilities to others. I had told my wife I would be gone a week, and now it stretched out to 6 months. I had a vivid glimpse of the reality of hell, and only an infinitely merciful God could deliver me from its flames. Totally immersed in the muck of materialism, I was swept into the vortex of a raging river like a small chip of wood. As it drew near to the time of the fast, I decided I was doing no good in Seattle, and since the fast is a very special family time, I returned to my island. As the winter of desolation must give way to the reality and warmth of the new spring, so the Spirit of God began to revive my drooping soul. As I turned to the healing waters of obedience to God, I am sure that only His tender love and compassion could have lifted me out of this slough of heedlessness. As the fast progressed, I began slowly, and then more rapidly, to advance once more into the realm of God from which I had descended. One day, while at complete peace and contentment, the revelation was born upon my spirit, "God doeth whatsoever He willeth." Oh, what joy and relief permeated my being! My actions had been those of someone trying to play God. "O God, my God, have mercy upon me." God is all-knowing and all-wise. In his infinite wisdom, he decided whether these children must return to their former state of poverty for their own best interest. Possibly this poverty would allow us to leave and go forward on the 9-year plan. Was not my primary concern due to a tender love for these Aleut people? In any event, God doeth whatsoever he willeth. All are his servants, and all abide by his bidding. After Nowruz this year, I left home for Seattle again, completely submerged in the inner reality of these thoughts. Upon my arrival in Seattle, I did not contact the banks, brokers, or wholesalers, but instead called my Baha'i friends and offered them my services for the weekend. On Friday, I spoke at the Seattle Baha'i Center, and the meeting was indeed a heavenly one. Upon returning to my hotel that night, news of the great Alaskan earthquake was being announced on television. The reporters stated that the Aleutian Islands had ceased to exist. Although my most precious family was alone on one of those tiny islands, my first cry was neither one of anguish nor remorse, but complete contentment with God's will and pleasure, followed by a soul-stirring prayer for my family's protection and advancement, whether still in this world or in the Abha kingdom. Of course, as it turned out, the radio and television announcements were greatly exaggerated, and the islands were completely untouched. My wife had loaded many of the townspeople into our company's bus and driven them to the hills, but my family decided that they would rather drown in the tidal wave than freeze to death on the mountain, and had returned to our home. This great earthquake lasted only 3 minutes, but in those 3 minutes every problem we had was completely solved. The companies that were intent upon our destruction lost every canning plant they had in Alaska. On Monday, the brokers and wholesalers fell over themselves to purchase my pack at full price. Another company had lost its plant, contacted me, and arrangements were made to lease our business to them, thus freeing me for further service to the cause of God and ensuring continued employment for my beloved Aleuts. Within a week, I was returning to Unalaska for my family. I am sure, as in the story of the birth of our little girl, some will say, there was just an earthquake, but Caldwell had a spiritual experience. Be that as it may, if every atom of my being were turned into the most eloquent thanksgiving, my thanks would still be wholly inadequate to express what is due my beloved for the least of his tokens.